I mentioned in VAT that we are seeing strong growth from withholding, as opposed to the normal VAT. And I did mention withholding VAT is primarily an enforcement tool. Okay, you want the person who is getting business from someone who's not compliant to withhold that tax at that point. Now, if you remember in the finance bill, there's actually a proposal to reduce the withholding rate, because for us, withholding is not about collecting taxes; it's about collecting information. Who has supplied vatable goods and has not yet declared it in their return? And we now believe our systems are good enough. We are seeing who is doing that supply, and we are able to see through the exception reports and identify who. So we would expect the withholding tax to play more an information role than a revenue role, and then you drive the VAT, you drive the VAT to the normal compliance ways. VAT is a compliance problem. Okay, it's primarily a compliance problem, and it's not about it has plateaued. It has not plateaued. We've had studies done on the VAT gap, and we know it is still substantial. So for us, VAT is primarily going to be a compliance problem, and we believe that we have the tools now, because we are able to see the information, who is not doing the work, and we are revising the way that we are carrying out enforcement to deal with the VAT. Now those answers also tie up with what the question from Dennis Otieno. A shortfall is simply the difference between a target and your performance. And rule of thumb is you'd expect your revenues to be growing in line with your economy, and then you add the impact of tax policy measures, and then you add the impact of your administrative measures. And the reason why you have a shortfall is that the growth rates that we are seeing when you look at the targets tend to be running well ahead of what you're seeing in terms of GDP growth and the estimated impact of the tax policies that are being proposed. And it goes back to what I said earlier about ambition. Yeah, ambition in terms of the targets. Now, the second point is, so what are we doing? What are we doing about this? I had mentioned earlier that we've always had a reform agenda in place, going back all the way to 2002-03, when we started this revenue administration reform and modernization programs. And I did mention some of the programs that we expect to roll out this year and help us enhance our tax collection. The ICMS, which will replace Simba. Simba system has been running since 2005, so it is now getting a bit long in the tooth. And also the cargo tracking, which will help us deal with transit diversion in terms of the trade side. We are also implementing a data warehouse, which is going to allow us to do a lot more big data analytics. We are getting a voluminous amounts of data coming out of our systems. We need to be able to be processing that data in time to tell the taxpayers what is coming out of the data, and enable them to go and deal with it. And then we always have, and we have again this year our revenue enhancement programs, where we look at the areas that we are targeting. I think if you remember, some months before, the former minister for cabinet secretary to the treasury had mentioned that we had got some tax policy advice and tax administration advice from the IMF, identifying areas that we can put in put in place efforts to turn around our revenue shortfalls, especially where our data work is working, but then our administration is not moving at the same speed. And those are all going to be part of the reform, the reform initiatives, so that we can have a better chance of meeting the target this year compared to last.